Hey guys, Mike here with EBR, and this is the Mokwheel Basalt. It's a fat tire e-bike. It was released about a year ago, but it's been really well received and had some very good feedback since it came out. And that's largely due to its attractive price of just $15.99 with a powerful 750 watt motor, up to 80 miles range, and the ability to charge it off-grid with solar panels and its own inverter. So how does it all stack up? Well, stick around, let's go take a ride and see how the Mokwheel Basalt stacks up in 2024. All right guys, so the Mokwheel Basalt is a class 3 bike, meaning it can get up to 28 miles an hour in both pedal assist and on throttle. Now it is UL 2271 certified, which applies to the battery itself, and its MSRP, like I said in the intro here, is $15.99. Now, when it comes to weight, this bike is advertised as weighing 80 pounds. We got the one for testing we have here. We threw it up on our scale and it came in around 81.5. Then when we took the battery out, it came down to about 70.5. So you've got about an 11-pound battery right here integrated into the down tube. Now, when it comes to colors, here we have the blue steel, but if this is not your liking, they also have a gray. And if you want, some of you hunters or outdoorsmen out there, they also offer this in a full camo for an additional $100, so $16.99 if you opt for the camo. Now, when it comes to sizes, this comes in only one size you see here, and that fits a wide range from 5'6" all the way up to 6'8". Now, I'm 5'11", and the bike fits me just fine. Even feels a little bit big maybe for me, but it still feels really good, and there's plenty of room to go in either direction. I don't know anybody 6'8", so if you're 6'8", who knows if it actually fits, but they say it does on their website. Now, when it comes to some geometry specific numbers for this frame, the standover height here is 32.7 inches. The wheelbase from rear hub to front hub is 45.7 inches. The reach up top is 14.5, but with a caveat that it does have an adjustable stem, so you could bring that out more or in more and really change that reach for your liking. But the way it sits here, it's 14.5. And then you have about 8 inches of adjustability in the seat post. So lots of ways to dial in a fit that works for you and a nice wide rider height range. Now the max payload on this is 400 pounds, so it's pretty substantial, giving you room for gear, or if you're just a heavier rider and want a bike that can withstand a little extra weight, this is another solid option. Now when it comes to wheels and tires, we have 26-inch black alloy wheels, and we have them wrapped in a 26 by 4-inch knobby or all-terrain tread style tire. Now these tires are made by Chaoyang, and they do have reflective stripes on them with some puncture protection. And we've been running these in the upper teens to low 20s, which seems to be a good balance of speed, good rolling resistance, but still having some squish and traction for not only comfort, but that grip as well. Now when it comes to fenders and racks, the bike does come with this rear rack here that has a nice wooden platform to it. And it also has mounting points for a water bottle cage here on the down tube or some sort of tool kit you could use, and a front basket mount up front. Now lighting, the bike does have a 60 lux headlight. It's kind of a dual beam light. Now it's bright enough to help you see when you're riding a little bit, but it's more so to kind of be seen by traffic on the road. Now there is also a wired in tail light that, fortunately, when you apply the brake levers, also acts as a brake light. So should you decide to use this around town, you're gonna have that extra feature of just letting drivers know around you when you're braking, which is another good feature to have. All right, now the motor on the Mokwheel Basalt is a rear hub motor here, and it is a 750 watt motor. Now this motor has a torque sensor on it, so it gives you a bit of a more natural sense of pedaling assist when you use it, and it has a respectable 85 Newton meters of torque that when I was riding I found to be really good, and it must be programmed very well because it does climb hills super well and has really nice power for its size. 750 watts is already a big size motor, but we don't always see them act the same when we do our riding and testing. But this motor performs really well, and it's got some fine tuning you can do. Now, specifically, the fine tuning on this is you have your 5 levels of PAS or pedal assistance, and that's pretty standard, 1 being the weakest level of assistance, 5 being the highest. But on top of that, you can go into the advanced settings, which I'll show you here in just a second, and that will allow you to change the motor sensitivity on a scale from 1 to 5 as well. Now it ships as a number 3, which is kind of a middle ground, and number 1 being the most reserved. So if I set it on level 1, the acceleration is very kind of relaxed and just gradual. And if I go all the way up to number 5, the motor gets very punchy and almost jumpy off the start, which is kind of fun to play with, but just something to be aware of. It can be a little much if you're not used to e-bikes. So I'd say start at the 3 it ships as, and if you're nervous about it, just start at the first one and work your way up as you see fit. But just having that flexibility to not only adjust the motor's power, but then having the 5 levels of pedal assist within each of those is a really nice way to kind of fine tune your ride and how powerful the bike is. Now, the battery on this is a 48 volt battery that has 19.6 amp hours, and it is UL 2271 certified. And that gives us 941 watt hours to work with. And it's got a 2-year warranty, not only on the battery, but the whole bike itself. Now, it does come with a key, and you can remove this battery. I'll show you how that works now. There's a key here that comes with the bike with the key slot on the opposite side of the battery. And I've removed this a few times now, and I have found that you kind of need to remove the tire to get it out the best, because it creates a little bit more space in here. So you'll turn the key, and then there is this little detach lever here that will allow you to drop the battery and remove it. And you can see here, you can charge it off the bike. So if you like to take it inside in cold weather climates where you need to do that, or just for security reasons, you want to remove the battery, you can do that. Now, they say you can get between 60 and 80 miles on a single charge. I ran 2 range tests on this, and in the lowest PAS setting, so PAS 1, I got 85 miles, so surpassing their estimation. And then on PAS 5, so kind of full bore and averaging over 20 miles an hour, I still got a very respectable 32 miles. So plenty of not only power and acceleration in this, but some really respectable and usable practical ranges as well. Now, I'll go ahead and put this back inside, which I'll leave the wheel turned, put the bottom in first, clip the top in, and then remove the key, and you're good to go. All right, so when we talk components on the Mokwheel Basalt, it's got a pretty standard setup that we see pretty often, and that is going to be a 7-speed Shimano Tourney drivetrain. So starting back here, you've got your Shimano Tourney 7-speed derailleur with a 14 to 28 teeth cassette, mated to a 44 tooth chainring. Now, the chainring does have a nice kind of alloy chain guard to protect your pant leg from grease or chain slips. And then you've got 170 millimeter alloy crank arms with some nice alloy platform pedals that not only have reflective strips on them, but they also have some good raised metal studs for grip on the bottom of your shoe. Now, if I'm being completely honest on this drivetrain, the range is a little limited for most situations of actually pedaling the bike, but with an 80-pound bike, you're not going to be doing a ton of pedal only. It's going to be a lot of motor assistance all the time. So not too much of a gripe on the range of the drivetrain, but I will say, it's a bike advertised for all-terrain use or off-grid exploring, which it can certainly do, and I rode plenty of miles on dirt roads and off-road trails, but I will say that the derailleur, it's not clutched, and so you will get some chain slap off-road and even some chain slip-offs when you're off-road hitting big bumps. So just small upgrades like adding a clutch derailleur or a derailleur with some good tension in it to keep that chain from slapping around would be an awesome upgrade on something like this, and maybe not too expensive. Now, moving on from the drivetrain, we do have hydraulic disc brakes, and they are made by Tektro, which is always nice to see because you know that they're going to be from a reputable company and have some good longevity and easy to service by your local bike shops. Now, those are 2-piston calipers mated to 180 millimeter rotors with a thickness of 1.8 millimeters. Now, the braking on this does really well, and especially for a bike of this size, 80 pounds or 81.5 pounds with big 4-inch rolling tires, it's a lot of mass moving down the road, and they're still able to bite well and stop the bike. Personally, if I was just asking for more, it's kind of more of a want versus a need, but I'd say going to 4-piston calipers on a bike like this and maybe even a 200 millimeter rotor would be a really cool way just to give this some serious stopping power, but just know it's perfectly capable now. I'm just kind of always looking for more when it comes to stopping power and things like derailleurs. Now, moving up to the saddle. So this saddle is unbranded, but it does have a nice wide cushion and padding to it, as well as spring supports on the bottom. I found this bike to actually be really comfortable, but that's probably largely due to this big saddle, 4-inch wide tires, ergo grips, and fat knobby 4-inch tires that kind of all just pull up to give you a pretty cozy ride on here. Now, up front, we do have a front suspension fork that's made by Overlord, and it has 110 millimeters of travel, which also comes with a lockout switch at the top of the crown. You just click that, and you can see it actually locks out with almost no play at all, which is really cool. And you can flick it back and get that right back into its place. Now, when it comes to the cockpit, here we have an alloy black bar with 720 millimeters wide, and on each end you have lock-on Mokwheel branded grips with fat, like ergonomic gel pads for comfort on your palms. Now, I know a lot of you guys ask about stems. This does have an adjustable stem up to 60 degrees, so you can really kind of dial in a fit that works for you. In the center, you've got your display. Here, you've got your Tektro brake levers, a push throttle, and your PAS buttons. as well as your Shimano Tourney 7-speed trigger shifters with window. Now, the wiring on this is nice and tied up and then routed into the frame and down through the rest of the bike. And now is probably a good time to go into detail on this display because it's actually nice color and easy to read, including the advanced menu, which we don't always see. So let's jump into the display now. All right, so this is the home screen when you power on the Mokwheel Basalt. It's got a nice full color display that I found to even be visible even in direct sunlight, which you can't always say about some of these displays. But all your basic info is here right on the home screen. You've got your speed, you've got your trip meter, you've got your time and your PAS level, which will change along with whatever current PAS level you're in. These bars here on either side are the battery meter bars, and they will go down at the same time, but if you run a dual battery setup, one will do one battery, the other will do the other battery, and that's automatically detected. Now, if you want to change some settings, there's two different settings menu you can go to. So the first will be accessed by hitting the up and down arrows together, holding it, and that will change to the function settings. Here you can change things like the brightness of the display, the units of measurement, so kilometers or miles an hour, startup mode, reset the trip meter, and that's going to be it in here. So to go back out of this, you'll just simply hit the light button and that will take you back to the home screen. Now, if you want to go to advanced settings where you have things like motors information, we talked about setting the motor sensitivity and really adjusting that. To access that, you're going to hold the up, down, and light button. So all three at once. Your thumb will kind of make up enough space to get that done. And that will bring you to technical settings. Now here in the technical settings, you can change the speed limit of the bike. It's currently at 31, although just know that it does top out at 28 miles an hour. I just put that on there to see if it would exceed it, and it did not. So we'll leave that at 28, hit the power button, which will kind of program that. Then we'll go down to the next one. Here, your power assisted gears, you can change between 3 or 5. We have it in 5 right now. So we'll back out and go to voltage level. You can change the voltage level. You can change the wheel diameter. So say you put on 27.5 or a different wheel or tire, you could change that setting in here. Here you can change the number of magnets in the sensor. Here you can change the riding mode. So we'll look at this. Here you got motor only. So if you just wanted to use just the motor, or pedal only and just pedal the bike having no motor, but a true e-bike is always set in pedal and motor. So we'll go to intensity settings, and this is where you can change between 1 and 5. And this is basically just how reserved or how powerful you want the bike to be. So we'll go into this, and you can see it's set on number 5, but you can bring it all the way down to number 1 if you like. And like I said, the bike ships at number 3. So we'll just put that back on number 3. And here you could factory reset should you want to do that. But all in all the settings you're going to need, no extra flash or flare, but the ability to really tune the ride to the way you like. And there's no app for this bike, so that's really all you have going on, everything you need right there at the display. And that makes up the display on the Mokwheel Basalt. So I'm going to go grab my helmet and let's go for a ride and kind of talk about how it feels out on the road. All right, guys, we're out here on the Mokwheel Basalt. And when you ride this bike, the riding position when you get on it is fairly upright. I've got a nice wide field of view in front of me, but I am slightly bent forward, so I've got a little bit of weight on my palms here, but not all my weight like when you ride a mountain bike or kind of a road bike. It's just kind of a hybrid, but mostly upright position. Now you can change that because you have this adjustable, because it really can let you dial in kind of the geometry that works best for you. You can be down forward in a more aggressive position, or you can be upright and relaxed, or you can be somewhere in between like we have here. I just think it's a good way to kind of let a bike get tailored to you by having something as simple as an adjustable stem. Now, as far as comfort goes, you've got quite a few contact points that are helping without even mentioning the suspension. So you've got ergonomic grips on both sides that have kind of these like almost, I'd say, a 1/4 inch to a thick gel pads to rest your palms on, which definitely help. You have a wide cushion saddle here that's got spring supports on it. You've obviously got the front suspension fork, and then you've also got big 26 by 4 inch tires. And so those not only help you with off-road, you can just kind of jump off-road and do what you want, but they also chew up a lot of the vibrations in the road and just make riding just that much more comfortable. Now, on that same note, when you're on pavement on a bike like this with 4 inch knobby tires, you're gonna have a little tire noise, kind of like when you hear a big truck pass you on the highway and it's got big oversized tires. You're gonna have the same thing on a bike, it's just much more subtle. So I'd say the tire noise is pretty equivalent to that of the motor. It's there, and if you listen for it, you can hear it. There's a small whine to it, but it definitely doesn't detract from the ride. It's not distracting, and it's definitely, out of all the e-bikes we've tested, it's definitely not on the loud side. It's just there, something just to be aware of. Now, we're riding in PAS4 out of the 5 levels, but we have a motor sensitivity setting in the advanced settings on 1 all the way up to 5. And it's currently set on 1, so it's the most reserved. In my opinion, it's the most natural feeling pedal assistance. And if I never rode an e-bike before and just got on this with motor sensitivity at level 1, I would think this is what e-bikes do, and it feels really good. But as you go up in that sensitivity, it drastically changes how it performs. So let's just do a little test and see how long it takes to get to 20 miles an hour on throttle. I'll be in PAS 5, but motor sensitivity 1. So 3, 2, 1, go. It's kind of a reserve start, nice and steady. This is going to be nice, this setting, for people who are new to e-bikes, or maybe your younger kids are riding them. And so right there, we hit 20 miles an hour. I didn't count how long it is, but we'll do the same thing when we change the motor sensitivity to number 5. So let me pull over and do that. I don't know if you guys can see, but I'm going to hold all three buttons on the control pad here. And that's going to give us advanced settings. I'm going to go down to the second page, which has intensity setting. Hit that. It's currently level 1. Let's go number 2, 3, 4, 5. Enter, and we'll back out. And so now we're on the exact same thing in level 5. So now we'll do throttle to 20. 3, 2, 1, go. Whew. And that's quick off the jump. Already at 10, 15, and 20. So substantially faster, substantially punchier, and it's something you're definitely going to notice when you ride this bike. So I would say ease into number 5 on the intensity settings, because it can get it can get a lot more aggressive than you may be ready for if you've never ridden an e-bike or you're worried about stability. Those type of things can quickly change how the bike feels, and if you're not ready for it, it might be a little much. So I'm going to stay on level 5 here just because, well, it's fun. And let's talk about these brakes. So we've got 180 millimeter rotors, 2-piston calipers, and they are Tektro HD 350s. Now, these are a pretty industry standard set of hydraulic disc brakes from a reputable company. So longevity, servicing, all that, it should be on the good. Now, let's get up to 20 and do a speed test, or excuse me, a brake test real quick. So here we are at 20, 3, 2, 1, stop. So it stops fast, which is good. The back tire did lock up a little bit because I was pretty aggressively braking. A slight fishtail from the back tire out to the right, but nothing that made me feel like I was losing control. Just know that in a short stop situation, or maybe an emergency stop situation, you could have a little bit of tire lockup and changing your angle of your bike from a little bit of fishtail. Now, on a bike that's 80 pounds with 26 by 4-inch tires, I love having hydraulic disc brakes, but I would like to ask them in maybe future releases for a 4-piston caliper version. I think that would give much more responsive and just more confident braking with more control. Although, like you just saw, these still do perfectly fine. And in day-to-day braking, I mean, they do great. Now, the motor has 5 levels of pedal assist, and as you can guess, 1 being the most reserved, 5 being the punchiest. And then again, remember, you have that motor intensity setting where you can kind of change the whole spectrum of that PAS 1 through 5 as well. Now, the throttle on this works well, and it works, in any PAS level. But as you'll see here, I'm in PAS 1. I'm going to hit the throttle. And PAS 1 on throttle will still take us to 28 miles an hour, which I'd like to see the speeds tied on throttle to the PAS setting. Maybe not, maybe we won't get to 28, we'll see. So it looks like about 25 miles an hour on PAS1, and then we'll go to PAS5. And so, I don't know if you guys were noticing on my phone, I've got my phone's speedometer that uses like GPS satellite tracking, and that showed us just over 29 miles an hour. And then on the bike's display, however it's calculated or programmed, it had us at around 27.5 miles an hour. So I'm gonna guess the GPS one's a little bit more accurate, but nonetheless, that's what we got. On your left. All in all, this thing had awesome range for its size and battery. And with this kind of capability of the shock and the padded seat and the power, it's just a cool bike to kind of, you can do anything from commuting to recreational rides to, you know, taking it with the RV and the camping gear and heading out and just exploring. And if you opted for the inverter and solar panel kit, you could even charge this while you're off grid, which is pretty cool. Now, granted, I don't know how long it would take and how much direct sunlight you need, but the fact that it's there, even at a trickle charge status, is pretty cool. So let's go back. We'll talk to Ben about his thoughts on the Mokwheel Basalt, and then we will wrap this up. All right, guys, we're here with Ben, our in-house mechanic, who's been turning wrenches on bikes for quite a while, and he's going to share his thoughts on the Basalt. I'm going to jump out of your way and let you do your thing, Ben, but first I want to say thank you to a sponsor of the channel, Feedback Sports, for providing us with not only tools, but this really sweet Pro HD rack. If you're looking for a lightweight rack that's also super durable and stable, this is definitely something worth you checking out. I'll put a link down below. Ben, why don't you just kick it off with what you like about the Basalt?
All right, Mike, thanks. So with this one, I sometimes try to work from front to back, but then I get distracted. So if I jump around, I'm sorry a little bit on that one. But to point out, it's a threadless fork, steer tube, and stem setup, which I really like. I've covered this before, so that just means parts are very readily available through any bike shop if ever you need some. Also, it's lighter and stronger and easier to adjust, so it's just good to see on a bike like this. With that, the stem, being a threadless style stem, it's also adjustable. It's sometimes, in some cases, where you'll see an adjustable stem on a bike like this, it's really flexy. So if you stand up on the bike or you go really fast through a corner, maybe you've got a load on the rack in the back, the adjustable stem has a lot of flex. This is not the case. This is very solid. The adjustment is easy to make, and it stays where it's supposed to. So I really like how robust that thing is. Of course, I'll point out aluminum pedals. They last longer, you know, on bikes like this where maybe you're going to crash or the bike tips over. Plastic can crack and sometimes will break. So aluminum pedals are just going to last a lot longer. So that's one thing that I really like. Going back to the front end, how they've gotten the under the bar shifter on the other side of the throttle on the handlebar, it just really makes it easy to get on the bike and ride and feel like ergonomics is a key here. So it's just easy to maintain control of both shifter, brake, and throttle. I think that's a great addition. I've mentioned it before and I'll talk about it again with this one. You get a zinc coated chain. Again, that's great for corrosion resistance. It tends to last a little longer as well. A micro adjust seat post, benefit there as a rider or consumer is you adjust it one time, get the level just where you want it, and it tends to always stay put. It's really awesome. They work very well that way. On this bike, one thing that I like as well is a minimal drivetrain or minimal cogs in the back. It's a 7-speed chain and shift and cassette, or freewheel rather. What does that mean? So the fewer cogs in the back, that means the thicker the steel will be on both the freewheel gears and the chain. More steel means more miles, means more longevity, fewer times and fewer need to replace the pieces. They just don't wear out as fast. So I really like it when bikes like this, big motors, I will put a 7-speed drivetrain on. They just seem to last longer.
All right, man. What kind of things would you improve on this bike?
The recommendations for this one, I think that in a case like this, it's a big frame. It's going to be carrying weight on the rack. The fork, and I'm not sure if it's just something that's a combination of a threaded axle with not a lot of stress coverage between the axle and the fork leg, or maybe it's just a narrower, shorter bushing inside the fork. But it has a lot of play side to side and front to back. So With a bike that's this big, with that kind of a motor, when you're cruising through, it just seems a little too flexy in the front end, so I would ask for a little bit more robust fork. Secondly, I've pointed this out before, but also this one has a 2-piston brake caliper, meaning 1 piston on each side. A bike this big that might be going a little bit faster, it sure would be nice to have a 4-piston brake on something like this. It just is a stronger brake, easier to control your stopping. It just feels better all the way around. I'll point out also 2 more things. The spindle on this is the older style square taper, and I've mentioned it before, but it sure does make the bike ride and feel more solid with a hollow, oversized bottom bracket spindle. I think that would do this bike a great justice. And secondly, the derailleur on this, albeit a 7-speed, which I do like, but it's Shimano's entry-level tourney. What does that mean? That just means the shifting is not going to feel really strong. It means this lower cage, it's already flexing a lot, and we've only got a couple 100 miles on it. So what you're going to look at, in some cases, it may just wear out sooner than you might want it to. So if you upgraded to an Altus or maybe something a little higher in the Shimano line, that would just mean a longer lasting drivetrain, less parts to replace, more miles, more time on the bike that you just bought.
Awesome, Ben. Thanks for your time, man.
All right, thanks, Mike.
All right, guys, so that wraps up the Mokwheel Basalt, kind of in a nutshell, the walk around, the full specs, and its capability. This is honestly a bike I really enjoy just kind of riding around. It's kind of a fun bike. The stiff frame has no flex. The 4-inch wide tires, knobby tires, and suspension fork, they just give you kind of this confident ride that feels like you can just come down anything, hit dirt roads and gravel. You know, within reason, I wouldn't take this down MTB single track, but for back roads, fire roads, gravel roads, it's really just a fun go exploring bike. It's gonna be good for anybody who wants anything from just a beefy commuter with ways to carry their gear, all the way to something you could take with the family and RVs and camping trips and really go out and explore. And then when you've got extra features like a power inverter and solar panels that fold up onto the rack and can charge the bike when you're out camping, it's just kind of a cool all-terrain, go anywhere kind of e-bike. So if you have any questions, drop them down below. And if you haven't done so already, consider liking and subscribing to this video. And until the next review, I will see you guys out on the trail.